Chapter 2.
Guidebook. It being very early on a Sunday, we did not waste time cruising between the bars to find the perfect one but docked at the closest pub still open. Harriet, as it was called, was a last stop kind of an establishment, filled with the drunkest and the least attractive of the all-night partiers. We rejected the advances of some ladies who spotted us as soon as we entered and attempted to make their way toward us, all the while swinging on their high heels, and landed our asses behind a table at a faraway end of that basement watering hole. For a moment neither one of us had much to say. Saul was smiling at the bartender, and I was still trying to make sense of the craziness that was now my life. "Guidebook," I said at last, rather loudly, "I've reconsidered. I would very much like a guidebook." Saul did not react but let the bartender place 2 whiskeys in front of us, and he sent him away with a smile. He then smirked. "Fine. I'll be your guidebook, for now. What do you want to know?" I said and sipped on my drink. It was rather difficult to figure out where to start. "So, I'm a vampire." I went with the obvious. Saul sighed. Boredom was written all over his face. "Yes. Didn't we cover this already?" For a moment he looked away, winking at a dead drunk girl who was sitting a few tables away. Very classic Saul. I was not bothered. "Well, what does that mean exactly, vampire? What does anything mean? Why are we here? Where are we going? Life's just stuff that happens. I'm not gonna sit here and waste my time trying to explain to you the reasons of existence." His dumbass evasiveness really started to grind my gears at that point. It got me to raise my voice. "Freaking tell me what the hell I am." I succeeded in drawing his attention away from that chick, who was clearly wearing way too much perfume, as I could smell with my new vampire nose. But he looked at me with a little devilish grin. For whatever reason, he might have wanted me to get angry. "All right then. Serious time. You probably already know most there is to know about being a vampire. Movies and books, and stuff, they've gotten most of it right. I think some of those books are even written by actual vampires. Anyways, you're like the undead, I guess. Not alive, not dead, and pretty much immortal. You need human blood to continue your merry way through the times. I don't like the word feeding, makes us sound so animalistic, but technically, yes. We be feeding on them humans. So as long as I drink blood, I cannot die." Saul shrugged his shoulders. "You won't die of natural causes. You can still be killed. We're still a bunch of atoms and molecules and what have you, just like everybody else. So, like if someone puts a stake to my heart? I guess. But not really. Wood is too soft to penetrate the skin of a vampire. You'd be better off with a steel dagger. Even better with titanium. But even then, it's mostly about strength. It takes a lot of strength to get anything through that vampire hide. How much? More than humans have for sure. Guns are also useless. A nuclear bomb, maybe? The jury's out on that. As far as I know, no vampire has been nuclear blasted, and no one's really volunteering to give it a try. But yeah, basically, humans aren't a problem. Other vamps can be. The older ones are stronger than the newbies. But that's only a thing until maturity is reached. You sort of come of age after about 100 years. Physical strength evens out around then." Saul paused, his eyebrow raising. He must have spotted the delight I felt hearing him say those words. Thank God. I will not be spending the rest of eternity as some older, stronger vampire's bitch, I thought. Just got to make it to those 100 candles. I wouldn't underestimate experience though. He continued a moment later. Some of the vamps have been around 1,000 years, maybe more. There is a reason for that, reason you probably don't want to find out. I nodded, humbly, but could not hide the smile. Saul shook his head but continued. Either way, strength-wise, there is of course skill that matters, practice. But most of all, you got to be well fed. You do not want to fight on an empty stomach. Easy pickings. Some vamp will just rip your head off. And there is no growing those back. That got me feeling a bit shakier and more nervous. And how often does that happen? Saul shrugged again. Not often at all. He smiled. We're a friendly bunch. And how big is the bunch? How many vampires are there? Not sure. But our numbers are kept under control. There are some pretty strict rules about turning humans. That didn't make much sense to me. What? Who controls this? Humans? Saul laughed once and shook his head. No. We have our own government. Yes, a vampire government. Not exactly a fun bunch, mind you. Might just bore you to death. That reminds me, we have to go and register you. I couldn't help but chuckle. Vampire life started to seem as tedious as human one. Yeah, I know, it's a drag. But it's beneficial to you as well. Once you get your documents, so to speak, in order, you're going to be protected by the law. So that no vamp can just rip your head off. The undocumented, they are fair game to any hunter. Hunter? Ah, you know, there are different types of vampires interested in different things. Some like to hunt more than others. That won't be a problem once you're registered. And obviously, according to the law, you're not allowed to kill other vamps either. But humans? Nobody cares much about humans. We finished our whiskeys and Saul gestured for a refill. Booze in the glasses and the barmaid gone, Saul's eyes narrowed, and his voice hushed just a bit. By the way, I forgot to ask you. Who killed you? The question got me to lean back in the seat. As odd as that was, I hadn't given that question a speck of thought. I don't know, I admitted, scratching the back of my head. I can't remember. I can't remember anything that happened. Is that a transition side effect or something? Saul sneered. No. That's the side effect of drinking too much. Hey, don't worry. It'll come to you. I nodded but remained slightly alarmed. I wasn't the sweetest guy, I knew. I never cared much for morality and only cared about rules and law when it was stupid not to do so. Still, I couldn't believe that someone out there not only wanted me dead, but wanted it badly enough to actually go through with a murder. But the more I thought about it, the sillier it felt to worry. I had become immortal after all, or close enough. Whoever he is, bet he'll be quite surprised when we meet again, I said, smiling. That'll give it away, yeah. We kept drinking in silence. There were plenty of questions still to be answered, but the mention of my murder had brought forth one that was filled with a sense of gratitude I had never felt before. I did my best to mask it though. Saul and we didn't do the emotional thing. Why did you save me? I mean, why bring me back? Saul shrugged, not a muscle moved on his face. So casual he was with this answer. Well, we're buds, right? Who would I drink with? The answer felt flat, and a lot of my gratitude evaporated. But it didn't really matter. There were more important questions anyways. So, you don't have vampire friends to drink with? They can be kind of hard to get along with. Vampires, even the kindest ones, are predators, no point to sugarcoat that. So, they like to hunt, and torture, and play with their food. I don't really find it that entertaining. Guess I've been around for too long. Yeah. How old are you anyways? The greens in Saul's eyes moved up and to the left. 212. I started to calculate. So, you were around when? Yes, I've been around. Saul interrupted. I took the hint. He didn't want to talk about the past. That was fine with me. Okay, what else should I know? I changed the subject. Saul spent a moment collecting his thoughts and then leaned forward, interlocking his fingers on the table. Well, mind control, it's a thing. I can teach you. They'll go over the rules in the embassy, but the short of it is that you can't go too big with it. All the humans are susceptible, but the government has a ton of vamps keeping an eye on things. Like, you can't go and start a nuclear war. They'll probably kill you for it. Or at least bury you alive for a century or two. So, that's one. He paused and looked both ways before continuing. And we currently have a non-aggression pact with the witches. So, don't even try to harm them. Don't mess with them at all. He shook his head dramatically. Never mess with the witches. Witches exist? Saul sighed. Yeah. Witches exist. Vamp life can be great, you know. Many of us just like to have fun. Can feel like a vacation if you wanted to. But witches, they are dark, evil creatures. Very dangerous. I could sense the seriousness that was within Saul when he talked about the witches, but for some reason, it didn't really affect me. I had a kind of boldness in my chest I had never experienced before. I had to assume it had something to do with being immortal, to an extent. Okay, I continued the conversation, rather jubilantly. How do I recognize a witch? Like a big beard or something? Always hanging onto a broom? Saul shook his head with a grin, probably taken aback by my arrogance. They look like all of us, human. You won't recognize them. As per treaty, it's their job to recognize you and stay clear. Easy enough. Saul nodded, and for the first time ever, the lines on his face appeared to portray something oddly similar to concern. I did not like that, so I kept going by counting down the list. Vampires, witches. How about werewolves? They real as well? Kind of. A while back, when we were at war with the witches, he scratched his temple. The way they describe it, werewolves were a kind of a weapon witches used against us. Basically, witches didn't want to fight in the front lines themselves, so they poisoned some humans with their magic or whatever and made them lethal to vampires. Sort of a biological war, I guess. Turned them into monsters. But werewolves aren't around anymore. It was in the treaty that they had to get rid of them. Just vamps and witches now. With any luck you won't even meet the latter. Despite Saul's grim tone, the existence of werewolves didn't particularly frighten me either. It was exciting if anything. Ever since waking up on that floor surrounded by my own blood, every minute that passed made me feel better, more powerful. Like nothing could take me down. It was exhilarating. But okay, that's enough for now, Saul said. He finished his drink and got up. Let's go to the embassy and get this sorted. I hopped up like a rabbit. Vampire embassy sounded like quite the sight to see. Saul noticed my excitement and chuckled. Just you wait.